Hey everybody, it's Grant, and today we are talking about the biggest, nastiest word in the economy today, recession. Are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? What is the reasons behind this? Is it a political push to not actually be in a recession? Is it not any of the things above? Is the Dow going below 30,000 points going to push us over the top or drive us down even farther? Today's video, we're getting into it. So the first thing that we need to talk about is opinion about the word recession. So in a world where we all have our own opinions about what everything means, let's actually put it right here, define what a recession is. It is 2 consecutive quarters of the GDP, the gross domestic product of the United States, or at least how we become in a recession, that goes down for those 2 consecutive quarters. So there is your actual definition. If you'd like me to give you a really good video on what a recession really is, I am 100% down to do that. Comment below, and I can put it in perspective to where you can understand that. Plus, I have made a lot of money during recessions, and if we go into one, this one is my next Super Bowl, because the first one wasn't really a recession, but that 100-year event, I ended up showing you where I started investing in the stock market heavily, and we really kicked some butt. And now this year, I've made over $505,000 from an investment I set up during the last 100-year event. We're not gonna go into that one, but let's talk about it. The definition of a recession, that means we could have been in one, depending on how you figure GDP. We're getting political here. I'm just letting you know, because when one side's in office, the other side's like, we're in a recession. When the other side's in office, they're like, no, now we're not in a recession. Politics is garbage, folks. But let's just be honest. Could we have been in a recession in the summer of 2022? Very likely. Right now, if you look at all the experts, they're saying it never really happened. They're saying it did happen. It's just such a pain in the ass that you got to come to YouTube to figure out if you are, if you aren't. As of right now, even some YouTubers are torn. They're considering right now a looming recession versus that we are actually in one. Now that we've covered what the definition of a recession is, 2 consecutive quarters of the gross domestic product going down in the United States, let's talk about how serious a recession can actually be. For example, the Great Recession, which I put that in quotation marks because that was a recession caused by the banking industry loaning money to people pretending they were higher qualified people. So they would take what's classified as probably C&D paper, package it as if they were really positive credit scored, 730 beacons, making 100 a year paper. And then they would sell it as a package, and it just kept happening because they were making so much money, and it wasn't regulated enough because it's so complex. And then people started going default and started going bankrupt and started letting their mortgages hit, and it flooded the market, and that's what happened in the 2008 recession. That big old cluster of craziness that led up to that. If you ever watched the movie The Big Short, I think is what it's called, you got to watch it. It's an amazing movie. It's super cool. But that lasted 18 months, and it was our Great Recession because our lovely politicians and media like to name shit and make it sound real bad, so that way you get real scared. And here's my take on the 2008 Great Recession. Wait. Great Recession. In 2008, I was graduating high school. That's my senior year, and the Great Recession ended up being a very interesting time for me. I ended up looking at 2 stocks, Bank of America and SPXU. I buy both of them to this day, not Bank of America so much. I changed to Wells Fargo. But what happens is I was buying Bank of America when the market would go down. I was buying and I was selling my SPXU, and I just kept doing that. Don't do this, okay? Understand, SPXU is an ultra short. You don't want to get into it. I'm losing like $100,000+. You'll see that in a future video. You've seen that in a million videos. I've been losing that for a long time. It's not fun. It's stressful. But I was buying this, selling this. I put $7,000 total in the market, and I raised it to $45,000. And then when the market corrected, because I knew this much of the market, not how it is infinitely over time, and I lost it all, basically. It went down to like $1,500, $1,200. And so a great story turns into a great learning experience right there. But a recession is the greatest wealth building tool of your time, or it's the one that just, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're living above your means, and you're going YOLO every day, it's the nail in the coffin to your financial situation. Understand, I also teach something called being recession proof. Being recession proof means when you buy a property, commercial or residential, you put 20% down. Oh, Grant, that hurts. Yeah, but it hurts worse when I'm buying it from you at cost and you're losing all your money because you're letting me do it because you can't pay your bill, right? Put 20% down. The property will absolutely, most likely cash flow unless you bought it really wrong. And then 20% down, right? Now you're avoiding PMI. You're not paying 1% of the mortgage price every single freaking month in a monthly fee. That sucks. That's a lot of money. And when you have 5 or 6 rentals and you're paying 1%, it ends up being a 6th rental that you're paying for that you don't get a cash flow on. So I make videos on this, it makes me mad, but I'm just telling you some things about recessions that I've taught you over the years because you might need them real soon. And let me tell you the last thing you don't need to hear and do when it comes to a recession. I met a very, very, very educated gentleman, and I met him in 2020, and he was still telling me the reason that he's living in the situation he's living in is because he lost his business in 2008, and the Great Recession has kept him down all this time. Look, I'm not saying that it didn't kick his butt, but 12 years later and now 15 years later, that's some stinking thinking, folks. Once you lose it, you've already done it. Therefore, you can either cry and say I can't, or you can go, I already did it. Now let me do it faster because now I've actually done it. I got this roadmap to success. Let me get back to where I was. And that's how winners win. If you lose everything, can you get it back, or at least get back on your feet a lot faster from the knowledge that you gained from that learning experience or successful failure that you had? Or you can let the boogeyman just keep you down for the rest of your life. Don't let recessions crush you. Start now. Mega pro tip: budgeting, saving, scraping, figuring out how you can live on less. So that way you can invest and figure out how to make this, whether it be a little bit of an investment or a larger investment, the greatest wealth building tool of your time. So now let's talk about some YouTubers. I would say Andre Jick is in favor that we are relatively in a recession. Graham Stephan thinks there is a looming recession. I am in the middle of it. I'm pretty sure there's just a looming recession. We could sit there and nitpick and say, but we are in a very weird time where inflation is insane. At one point, I was building houses for 400% on framing material, more so than I am now. Don't really know how to make a profit, but hey, we pushed through and it's been profitable on that subdivision that you've seen me here build on this channel. Link in the description below on a video or two if you want to go check it out. Also, you've got car prices, used car prices skyrocketing past the price of a new one. That's not smart. And the reason I think that we have a major chance for a major recession, if not even depression, is because when the financial market had the recession, that made sense, right? They made a mistake and they're the financial sector, but the people outweigh the sector of finance, the banking industry. We all make the country. So if we're all buying a vehicle that's a little too expensive, we're buying a vehicle that we're gonna be $10, $15, $20, $30,000 upside down on when we go to trade it, that's a very scary thing. That's a lot of car repos. That's a lot of credit scores getting smashed. That's a lot more interest rates getting hiked up because of that situation. And it could lead to a really large economic depression if the people all start feeling the sins of our purchases during this 100-year event and all of its repercussions and waves that it's caused since COVID. And not only that, we're buying houses at record high prices, and that is really hurting everybody because now, not only are the house prices high, but now they've went from interest rates where my nephew, when he bought his first home, he got 2.6. What? 2.6%. When I bought the house you guys are seeing, I got 2.75 or 2.7. Oh my gosh. And right now, interest rates prime for a 730 plus Beacon with 20% down and an equity discount is looking at 6.5 to 6.75%. And they're looking at raising them once again. There is a fine line between a politician running this country that's never run a business and a business person that's trying to get by with all these politicians and their rules and their ideas. It's very scary, folks. But even though it's very scary, even though a lot of this stuff is happening, a lot of the inflation is something you can't control. I'm in the car business. Part of it is our fault, but at the same time, it's not because we can't get inventory. So if you can't get inventory, do you want your local dealership to close, or they got to go buy all these used vehicles? And we're buying them at record high prices and selling them for even record higher prices because there's got to be a profit. but we're not selling them for $10,000 of what we're buying them for. We're selling them for $1,500, $2,500, whatever we can do to keep that employment going for our sales staff, to keep the supply and the demand met. It's tough. It's so tough. There's no right or wrong answer here. When I'm building houses, I am taking a huge chance because not only materials went up and now they've come back down, but now interest rates have gone up. Smoke out the ears, folks. Smoke out the ears, because there's just, every turn doesn't just have a clear, definitive answer. Right now, I could build a subdivision, but if rates are at 7% or material prices go up, I might be stuck with 3 or 4 houses and have to turn them into long-term rentals. That's some real nice long-term rentals to build a $200,000 or $300,000 house to put somebody in. Lake Charles, Louisiana doesn't want to rent something that expensive to make it make sense. So there's just a ton of issues here, and let's talk about the last thing that I was worried about, and in my personal opinion could actually push us from a looming recession into a major recession. This last point is the Dow going below 30,000 points. For this week, the Dow has crushed below 30,000 points and a little bit of last week, and then guess what? It has now risen back to where it is above 30,000 points. And honestly, you might not figure the Dow as the main tool here, but understand when Bitcoin went below $20,000 is the same thing when the Dow going below $30,000. The average investor loses so much confidence when you have that, like, all right. If the Dow goes below 30, that's where that gambler's mentality that is inside the market is full of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And that FUD, I promise you, is setting in, because it's something I was even personally looking at on my opinion of the market. So if the Dow does drop below 29,000, if the Dow does drop below 30,000, you'll be seeing more videos on the upcoming recession from me. Inflation is not slowing from what I've seen. Building materials have come down, but they could go right back up. We need the American people going back to work and not demanding $29 million an hour because the businesses can't pay it. So even with that concern about the Dow going down below 29,000 or below 30,000 again, that is going to set in that standard investor's fear. And that's not good for the average investor because they make up a large portion of the market. The biggest thing is if businesses don't make as much money because we have less money to spend, they're going to start laying off. And once the layoffs start, that's when the rest of the cascade might happen. So be preparing, be ready, and be fearful, because understand, fear doesn't mean don't get in the market, but it does mean pay attention more before you invest. Make sure you're putting things in the right places. Get less risky. Get a little bit more smart, because this recession could be the greatest wealth building tool of your time, or it could be the financial nail in your coffin of your financial situation. So, hope this video was helpful. I can make it more specific. I can make it less specific, but I am just giving you my thoughts on this. Let's go ahead and do some closing thoughts. I will tell you, CNBC reports that this recession, if it does come to pass, will be swift and short. For a news article from a company that provides you fear to make sure you watch them, because otherwise they're irrelevant when you're saving kittens out of trees, that's a pretty good article. It really is. Also, you got to realize that you need to really pay attention, because with an upcoming presidential election, they're going to, on one side, try to push more fear. On the other side, try to push down more fear. So it's harder to find the truth. And I hate that that's a thing. I really do. I wish they would just be like, hey, these are my flaws. Vote for me or not. This is what I'm planning on doing. Great. That'd be so much better. But when it all comes down to it, just be mindful, pay attention. Don't listen to others. Don't listen to the media. Make sure you go and gather all those opinions and thoughts, and then also research your own to make sure you're not just repeating some garbage versus some facts. Hope you have a fantastic afternoon. Please keep in mind, Jerome Powell did do his latest speech, and he did say the pain will continue, which means they're going to be raising rates. They're going to be doing a lot of other stuff, and it's going to be real tough. If you're looking at buying a mortgage, go ahead and lock one in now. You got 90 days to be able to do that. And start budgeting, because we might be into batten down the hatches for a rough sea ahead. All right, guys. Hope you have a fantastic afternoon. Sorry for all the scare and the fear, but I believe in you. See you later.